I know, apparently it's really windy outside and the weather is quite bad. So thanks for making the effort. A little bit of housekeeping. Fire escapes, there's one behind the screen there, and one down at the front door when you came in. And the bathroom is also through that little side door there. And a very big welcome to Earth's Edge and our talk for Machu Picchu and the Great Wall of China. So what we're going to do now is just have a little chat about Earth's Edge, tell you a little bit about myself. We'll go through both of the trips and then have some questions at the end of it. We also have some gear here. If any of you have questions about gear, we'll just mention that and what you might need on your trips. How many people are thinking about the Great Wall? Machu Picchu? The rest? Such brilliant. Yeah. Fantastic. Okay. So, Earth's Edge, obviously you're all familiar with it. So it's an Irish company based in Donnybrook. It's a bonded company, so that means it's travel agent insurance. So that means then you're covered if something was to go wrong financially. The rest of your money is covered as such. There's a great team in the office. I'm one of the guides. So it's a fantastic team who look after us really well. I don't know how many there are now. There's 6 of you? 6 in there because it's got quite busy, and they're like octopus. I always think of them as octopus. If something goes wrong when we're away, all these arms come out and it's all sorted, and it's great support from our point of view. They go all around the world and do different levels of trip, so from moderate all the way to super adventurous, and they vary from trekking to biking to kayaking to rafting. So there's a really good mix. It's actually great fun. So that's myself and Lorcan, who's another one of the guides. This is at a training weekend that we had in Wicklow. I don't know whether I'm fortunate or unfortunate to have been born into an adventurous family. At 6 months, I was on my first expedition, and it kind of rolled from there. I rebelled during my teenage years, but went back to it. So working in the outdoors for the last 20 plus years, and been working for Earth's Edge for the last 4. And I think Earth's Edge are having their 10th birthday party this year as well. So that's quite good. This is the big boss, James, there, with his wife, Rosie. And I'm not sure where they are here. Do you know where they are? Ah, very good, yeah. That was last year. Yeah, so the two of them, they share their tents in their way. I'm not quite sure how good that is, if they're still talking at the end of it. But that's James and Rosie. They're away in Patagonia at the moment, actually, exploring for new trips. So Machu Picchu itself, fantastic trip. I did it 2 years ago now, and it really was great fun from the beginning to end. Lots of culture, lots of great mix of trekking, from really feeling like you're being up into the mountains to right down into the valleys, and then obviously the historical Machu Picchu itself. So really a great trip. Both these trips have long flights, but they are worth it. So it's Dublin through Amsterdam, straight down to Lima, and then Lima to Cusco. And Cusco's quite high, so it's a little bit of a shock to the system when we get there. So we spend a lot of time acclimatizing. So with that, you have a full day and a half in Cusco. So when you get in after your flight, time to explore, sleep, and then you go for a nice trek the next day. All about acclimatizing, getting used to the altitude, and then you start your trek. 4 days trekking, then we go on to Machu Picchu, and then Agua Caliente, which is a fantastic town place to see. Can you see there? Do you want to move across? Are you okay? You're fine, yeah. So lots of a great mix, and you can see here we go from quite mountainous terrain, so it's really cool. So this is Cusco itself. Really interesting place. Lots of shopping to be done. Lots of great food as well. Lovely carpets to buy. There's great stuff. So you'll have lots of room in your bag. Cusco itself. That's the acclimatization trek. It's about 5-8 hours trekking on that first day. And then we start off on our trek itself. Now, the thing about this is you're gonna arrive with your little rucksack, your Daypack, and you've got your bag that's got all your clothing and everything in it. But when we're on the trips here, that all your stuff is carried up by a mule. So you're carrying your day stuff. So all the things that you'd have here, like you're going to have your waterproofs, your camera, maybe your lunch, water, sun cream. So quite a light pack. But the stuff that you need, all your equipment that you're going to need for the trip is carried, but it's carried via mules and by bus. So we are limited to the amount of gear that you can bring. They'll give you a little bag, and I can't remember whether it's 8 kilos or 10 kilos, but you got to squash it in, which means, though, that you have lots of room for buying things and shopping when you come back. So it's great. Each trip is accompanied by an Irish qualified guide and by a doctor as well. Okay. So day one, all through these pastures, you'll see little farms. It's fantastic. And then you come up onto this lovely plateau, and this is where we camp for the first night. So you really feel like you're up in the mountains. It's quite high. It's about 4,300 meters. It can be a bit chilly. So this is when you're thinking about the gear that you're going to bring away, you've got to prepare for this night especially. So that's where you might need some down jacket, gloves, and a good sleeping bag. So we come up here and stay. The guys will cook us a wonderful dinner up there. It's fantastic. The sky at night time, it's an amazing place. So that's our first night as such on the trail. So it really feels alpine and big. It's great. The next day then we come over the pass itself. That's about 4,600 meters. So this is where, because we've had our acclimatization day in Cusco, we take a nice and steady, get used to the altitude, and come over the pass here. Here they all are. Feels like you've made it to a good height there. Happy smiles. You can see they're enjoying the sunshine. Sometimes it's really sunny, sometimes it's not. It just depends. And then coming down off the path. This is a spectacular valley. You come down here and it's quite mountainous, and then you move into it and it gets very green very quickly. And you're walking on this nice path along here. You look at the far side of the mountain going into the valley going, God, that looks really steep. And then you look at what you're walking on and you look over the edge and go, oh, it's the same on this side. This is amazing. Quite a lot of wildlife as well, birds, so fantastic flowers. It's really quite amazing. Okay, so we come down. And then when we come down through this lovely undergrowth, we come to a little village and we camp just outside the village. And there's, sometimes it's in a garden of a guest house. But it's really quite cool because the guest house are going to cook your dinner for you. You're sitting out. It was really a really nice experience, actually. So the day after that, you come down the path like this one here. There's waterfalls coming in off the left-hand side that you're walking quite close to, bridges, and it's a downhill day nearly. So we've come up over the big pass. You come down that first day, and then this is a gradual descent all the way down to the next village. So it's really amazing. And at times you're walking through fields and you suddenly come across this little, it's a rural house as such, and they've realised that there's a few tourists coming through now, and they've built a semi-shelter, and there's a little hole in the wall, and you can buy some 7-Up and some chocolate, and they've got a bit of fruit and everything, and lots of chickens actually. But that's the next day coming down. And then we have late lunch in this lovely, possibly late lunch in this lovely village, and there's a trip, I think, to a coffee plantation. Isn't that correct? On one of the days, yeah. And then there's the option as well of going to the lovely hot springs. So it depends how your trek is going. I know for this one we came in late afternoon, and it got dark when we were in there. So you have this little place is lit up, but you were just lying in these beautiful hot springs with the mountains beside you, lovely starry night. It was quite spectacular. So another day, again we're down in the valley, which is quite spectacular, and we follow a wonderful track along the edge of I know it sounds a bit strange, along the edge of the railway line, but the trains that come through, I think one came through, but they were quite ornate and very old-fashioned looking. They were quite spectacular. But we followed this all the way down by the river, over these old bridges. I mean, look at the mountains here. It's kind of what you picture then how you'd see the ruin, isn't it, on the top of the mountain there. Fantastic. Coming all the way down through here. Still lots of wildlife, etc. So then we arrive in Cusco. And again, quite a fantastic village, town. And you get up super early the next morning. And it's well sorted to come up onto the ruin itself. So what happens is we get up early and there's literally a queue, and you think this queue is monstrous, but the buses just come by. They're literally coming by, and the queue moves really quickly, and you come up, you get a bus journey up, and then we come up onto the ruin itself. So it's very well organised. If you want to, you can bring your passport and you can get it stamped to say that you've been there, which is quite nice. And we get a guided tour around the ruins themselves. After the guided tour, there is an option to actually climb the Machu Picchu mountain, which it takes about 3 hours round trip. And it's quite interesting because they've built it themselves, and it's all these little tiny little steps, then some big steps. And it's quite an adventurous climb up to the top. But once you get up there, it's kind of like the equivalent of standing. You see the peak over there behind that? It's kind of like standing on that, looking down onto the ruins itself. So very, very impressive. If you don't want to do that, you can just stay and absorb the ruins themselves. Then there is time, basically stay there as long as you like, until the last bus home, if you wish. So really quite spectacular. And then we come back down and we have dinner in Cusco, and to come out the next day then back to, Aguascalientes, and then back to Cusco, and then that night we have our celebratory dinner. So it's quite a full itinerary, but it's great fun. There we have Machu Picchu. All pleased with themselves. And then some more time around Cusco. I think the option of a guided tour around Cusco as well. So really very nice. So you can see, this is what I'm talking about. You see the top picture there? So there might be a guest house where the picture's been taken from, and you're in these nice little green gardens where you can camp. And then you can see the view there from the ruin. So quite spectacular. Okay, so 4 days of trekking, and then up around the ruins, and then days on either side, an acclimatization trek, and then shopping days as well. Now, the Great Wall of China, another pretty spectacular trip. I was there last October, so super fresh in my memory. We have our flight out there. We go through Abu Dhabi, get into Beijing, and we get into the Beijing quite early in the morning. And then basically we get a bus. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours, to the hotel guest house that we stay in for the first night. Now, on the last trip, we were fortunate in that we stayed, when we drove through, we had lunch in a local restaurant, which was quite spectacular. There was 18 of us. We sat around these two big round tables, Lazy Susan in the middle, and then 15 dishes came out of Chinese food. Absolutely delicious. And then we got to look around this fantastic Ming workshop. So they had a different room for each different stages of the Ming vases. So it was quite a treat to see that. So days 3 to 8 are single day treks, taking in the highlights of the Great Wall. Okay. The second last day is sightseeing in Beijing, and then there's a free day in Beijing as well to have a good look around, and then fly back out to Dublin. So you can see where Beijing is, and the Great Wall goes through it. Some people say it's 6,000 kilometers of wall. Some people say it's 20,000 if you include all the ditches and banks and rivers and everything else that makes the boundary. Apparently you can't see it from the moon, so it's all a myth. So each day on this trip is very, very different. I think a lot of people think of the Great Wall, they think of it as very new. So it's that traditional, very clean bricks, walls on either side, lots and lots of steps. There are lots and lots of steps, but it varies an awful lot from day to day. So One of the days is quite a long day, and you can see that if you follow the wall around, you can kind of see that there is a white line down the wall there with no sides on it. Do you see that? So that's basically what's happened. The wall there was destroyed during the war. So the side parts of the wall got destroyed. But there's some days you might have a military base, and one of the days is a military base, so you can't go on the wall just where the military base is. So that means you've got to hop off and walk around these lovely fields and through farms, and you get to meet locals and see old ruined houses, and they have little pop-up coffee shops every now and again, which is all very pleasant when you've been walking for quite a while. Again, 5-ish hours walking. You can see here that there's parts of this wall are quite ruined, and you've got the watchtowers here, so you can walk through the watchtowers. Some of them will have solid roofs on them, so you can climb up onto them. But you see the way the trail is, it's quite narrow in places, and then maybe the entrance to the watchtower, there's no steps to it anymore, and there'll be a little ladder to go up onto it, and a guy sitting there charging you 20 pence to use his ladder that he's made and brought up on the wall so that you can get up into the watchtowers. So you can see absolutely magnificent. This is quite well restored. Lots of steps go through here. But you can just see that, I mean, as far as you can see, just watchtowers and walls forever. It's great. And this is a closer up view of it. And then apparently the wall has been rebuilt several times. So they'll explain to you when they're there. You can see where there's been different levels of it at the bottom there, where it was from the Ming dynasty, early on Ming dynasty, and then it was developed through the time. It took 2,000 years to build. So apparently families lived up there, born there, died there. So it's fantastic. So we can see the lovely new wall on the left-hand side there. And then on the right-hand side, it's a little bit more in disrepair. So one of the days you go on it's very much a wild wall. There's not been much work done on it at all. What happens is each region or each area it's their responsibility to keep the wall. So if the wall is near Beijing, they've got lots of money, so it's very well restored. In other areas, they wouldn't have so much money, so it becomes more and more ruined. I mean, at times here, the wall was gone completely, and it's just a pile of rubble. But you can see the nice big cracks forming on some of the watchtowers, but they just can't keep it. But very interesting from our point of view, because we're walking through all these bushes. See the guys in the yellow t-shirts there, finding their way through. And very much trees going through it. Quite misty, quite atmospheric. On this day when we came through here, the walk was about 4.5 hours. And then we popped off the far side. And obviously to get up onto the wall, there's little paths that go through all these trees and undergrowths. So you're finding your way up through it. And then we came down the far side, and this local man met us. It obviously had been prearranged, but we didn't know it at the time. He met us and brought us down to his village, and he had a lovely little guest house and fed us a wonderful dinner. We came in and there was ponds. They have fresh fish, and their chickens are all there. All the food is very fresh. But literally as we came up, he fished out 2 fish, clocked them over the head, gutted them, put them on the barbecue, and the next thing you know, they're on our table. So quite fascinating. Here's one of the lads who brings up the ladder and charges you to get up there. Full of character. So you can see the wall going off there to the right, just way off into the background. This day is quite magnificent, and there's a big steep. You can see we came up from the valley floor, so it's quite steep up through all the trees, and then you pop out, climb up onto the watchtower, and away you go. And then on this day, we start off in the very much the wild wall, and then suddenly it's restored. So obviously we come into the next region, and there's red flags, and I mean this is incredible. These steps are only about this wide. You have to step sideways all the way down for quite a while. Fantastic. And then eventually, where you come to the place where you get off the wall, we had the option of getting a cable car down, walking down, or coming off in in a sledge. Have you ever seen the sledge that you sit on? They're on little rails, little half pipes. You get into this dish with a handle and zipped off down the side of the Great Wall. It's great fun. See, there it is, looking back. So we came from over the hill there. This day we started the lake, and you can see there's actually no steps there. So it's quite challenging. You get these little sections of steep wall that there's no steps on. So you're going to have to push up or push each other up here. Quite a fantastic experience. And then you come across the places like this where it hasn't quite been restored. Magnificent views. You can see the wall coming right down to the reservoir. But when they made the reservoir, they just flooded the wall. They get rid of it when they need to put in reservoirs or roads or anything like that. It's in quite good condition. The other thing about the wall is, so there's the wall comes around here like this, but there's loads of little arteries of wall as well that zip off, and they've got watchtowers too. So when you think of it, it's not just a big straight line of wall. There's loads of little walls coming off it, so that's what I think makes it so long as well. So that's all the wall day. So it varies an awful lot. So we've got wild wall, where it's crumbling, you've got all the trees, etc. You've got days where you've got to walk up steep up onto the wall, and it might start off quite rough, and then turn into this beautiful wall that they've restored. Sometimes as well, I know when we were on the new wall one day, we were coming along, and the next minute this school came by, and they're all wearing purple jumpers, and they just kept coming by and kept coming by. There was 700 of them. So at the end, there's a teacher at the back, and she had a little walkie-talkie, and she was talking to the guys at the front. So we stopped and asked her loads of questions, and she was like, yeah, no, it's a very popular school in Beijing. This is 1 year. So that was just 1 year of 700 children coming through, yeah. And all very well behaved as well. And the odd time as well, when you come to some of the restored watchtowers, they might have a little cafe in there too, so you can sit. Very often when you come off the wall, on the wild wall days, obviously you're coming into local villages, and on the restored days you're coming into little tourist areas where there is trinkets and things to buy, and Mao's little red book and medals and all sorts of things like that. There's randomly we had done quite a big climb, quite an uphill, quite a lot of downhill. It was we were quite sweaty and working hard, and at the bottom of one of the dips there was a little old gentleman, and he had all his cards, like postcards he was selling, little Mao hats, and he comes up there every day. He's 80 odd, sells his few little bits and bobs, but the walk in is quite impressive. So then coming back to Beijing, there's quite a bit of sightseeing to be done. The Forbidden City, there's a few castles, well not castles, what's the word I'm thinking of it? Where do they pray? Temples, yes. Temples, also the Olympic Games village, so quite a lot of places to see, so it's a pretty intense full day of sightseeing. And then you have another day where you can go out and go shopping or experience some of the food. There's that street that you go down that has all the food stalls on it, where you can get scorpions and spiders and all that kind of carry on. So yeah, Tiananmen Square, going into the city, very interesting, and it's quite a contrast. So you've been out in this wall where you're in the middle of nowhere, and then you come into Tiananmen Square and you can feel the population and the volume of people, and the people queuing to go in and see Mao, and the people in the Forbidden City. It's quite a contrast. We get a guided tour through this, so lots of information. The cube. So both of these treks, none are technical as such. They do require a certain amount of fitness. So when we're in South America, you've got your 4 days on your trail, you've got your warm-up trek as well. So you do need to have a certain amount of fitness. On South America, the most challenging part, I think, is the fact that you're at altitude on that first day. So that's where your fitness is going to come in quite handy. On the Great Wall of China, there's a lot of steps and a lot of up and down. So they're different. And in Peru, there is a day which is about 8 hours trekking. That second day is about eight hours trekking. So it's a long day, but it's a nice day. There's a little bit of uphill. You get up to the nice pass, you're really high, and then it's that walk all the way down. So although it's quite long, it's not incredibly challenging. It's quite nice. So both the trips, yes, definitely a certain level of fitness. Both trips, amazing food on them, really interesting, very local. On your Peru trip, you're going to be working, you've got your mules and your muleteers and your cooks, so you can go into the mess tents. There's a mess tent and then there's a cooking tent, and actually chat away to the guys, and they're cooking, and they'll tell you all about it. In China, you're in the guest houses, but breakfast for us was always a little bit interesting. The guy does spicy food and everything, so I brought out 5 kilos of porridge. So every morning then we would go into the kitchen and we'd be stirring up our big bowl of porridge, and the locals found this quite fascinating, and they'd be comparing their millet porridge or whatever they're making to our porridge. So there's lots of opportunities to go in and chat to the locals and see what's happening. The kit-wise, as we mentioned in South America, you are limited when you're on the trail itself. Now when you arrive at the hotel, you can leave your bags there. So the kit that you're bringing out on the trek for 4 or 5 days can be quite minimal, but you can come back and then have your fresh change of clothes and all the extra stuff, because you can leave that in the hotel. China's a little bit easier in that we have a bus that follows us. So each day we go out to a trek and then come back to a guest house. So the bus will bring us from one guest house to the next guest house, and our bags can just go in there. So that's quite handy. In South America, they will give you a little bag for your stuff when you're bringing it out with the mules, okay? But it's like everything else, we'll talk about it in a little minute. It's good to be organised and have everything in some sort of a dry bag, so even if they would get wet, that your stuff inside is going to stay nice and dry, okay? Going back to the food, if you have dietary requirements on both trips, they're well able to deal with that. So you just need to tell the office beforehand, and then we can be ready and expect that on the way. So our fitness and training. 2 months before each trip, there is a training weekend. And it's quite a nice idea to go on the training weekend, because you get to meet people on your trip, which is quite nice, especially if you're going out on your own. You don't arrive at the airport totally kind of eyes wide open going, what's happening? So it's nice to meet everyone. Also, you tend to, if it's possible, your guide will do the training weekend, so you'll have met them. And they'll go through the trip completely. So you'll have a good idea of what to expect when you get there. The other thing it does, which sounds a bit nasty, but it's not really, is it gives us an idea of what your fitness level is like. So if you are a little behind on your fitness level at that point, we can then help you and give you recommendations so that you are prepared for your trip. But lots of different ways. I mean, most people find the time an issue for training, because life is obviously quite busy for a lot of us. But it is to get out as much as possible. And there is no substitute really for walking. If you're going on a trekking trip, trekking is what you need to do. But if you can't get out an awful lot, there's obviously the gym. Prepare for China with your steps. Find somewhere up and down the steps. And get out and cycle. I often say to people, even if you only got 20 minutes, just get out and do some interval training. Find a hill close by and do some nice interval training. Get that heart working. And then at the weekends or whenever you can, get the mileage underneath you. The other good thing to try and do as well is, a lot of people mightn't have done multi-day trekking. So you come home from your day in the Wicklow Hills and you have a nice glass of wine, big dinner, have a nice bath, get up the next morning a bit achy, but sure, it doesn't matter, I'm just going to work, it's fine. But on these trips, obviously the next day you're getting up and you're doing it again, and you're doing it again, and you're doing it again. So it's quite nice if you can to do a weekends, maybe days that are back to back. Or if there's a long weekend, maybe even try and get out 3 days in a row, just to get used to it a little bit. And obviously, avoid injury if you can. If you have little niggles, little joint pains, etc., try and get them ironed out before you go. So this is our weekend. Very different to the pictures that we saw in the nice sunny weather on the wall in South America. But a good fun weekends, and nice to get to know everybody. So the Babs will send you out an information pack. So if anyone hasn't signed up, if you could give do you take the details now? Email? Yeah. Babs here can take details of your contact details for your email, etc. So she can send you out an information pack tomorrow all about it. But Machu Picchu is 3,299 euros, and then Great Wall of China is 2,999 euros. So that, as we said before, that includes your flights out there, most of your food out on the trek, your Irish guide, your doctor. It doesn't cover things like your injections, your insurance, and the odd meal or two when you're out there. Okay, but it does cover the bulk of everything. It's great to have the medic on the trip because they just have a big kit of toys and away we go. And especially when we're quite rural, they can deal with things out there. The deposit, to confirm your booking, you'll obviously have to come up with a deposit, and then you pay the balance before the trip. So these are the availability at the moment. You can see some of the Machu Picchus are full. Great Wall of China, one of the trips is quite full, and some of the others have good availability at the moment. Has anyone booked on the trip so far? Excellent. Yeah. The others are still deciding, yeah. So yeah, I think this is a killy shot of meeting everyone. I mean, we've had our romances as well. Yeah. We've had the guys on the right. That's one of our doctors, and one of the handsome trekkers. And I haven't met these two. The last time I was on Kilimanjaro, I had a proposal on the summit. So that was quite sweet. It was a little bit worrying because I nearly had to turn him back on the night up to there because he wasn't feeling very well, but luckily he pushed through. And then we spotted him on one knee at the summit, so that was quite sweet. These two have since been married, so that's nice. Other events, so great treks out to the Himalayas. There's Everest Base Camp. There's what's the pass called, that one that they do in India? Stockangri is the peak, and then there's a pass that they do as well, a great trekking, Curry Pass. It's a great trekking trip. Kenya Tri Adventure, it's a bit of a unique trip for Earth's Edge. We do cycling, rafting, and go up to the top of Mount Kenya. So it's a nice one. It's a nice one to be thinking about. Stockangri is a good peak to get up to the top. Amazing place, situated in India, fantastic. Everest Base Camp. Elbrus, a little bit more demanding. So most people, a lot of people when they've done Kilimanjaro, maybe they do Stockangri and then they tend to move on maybe to Elbrus. And Kilimanjaro, the very popular trip. But both these trips, I have to say, out of all the trips I've done, really enjoyed them. So they're physically demanding, but not too demanding, and a great sense of culture. Great sense of food, amazing people on it. My last two trips, one to Peru and the one to China, we just laughed from the moment I met everyone. It was fantastic. Great bunch of people. But an all-round great trip. Okay. So equipment-wise, China is... Can I walk with it? Oh, I can, yeah. Here we go. Both trips, footwear is quite important. So we would recommend that you wear some sort of a lightweight boot. Okay. Some of the trips you can get away with maybe not having a boot, but we would recommend it. It's all about support. You're out there, you're on your trip. You really don't want to be turning back on day two because you have inadequate footwear and it's not doing the trick. So anything from a light leather boot to a light fabric boot. I always like to go for the Gore-Tex waterproof so that if we do get those rainy days, again, because it's a multi-day trip, my feet aren't wet for the rest of the trip. So that's quite nice. China, you've got to have your day pack on both the trips. So something that's 25 to 30 litres. So something maybe around this size. Again, because you're multi-day trekking, it needs to have a nice system on the back that's quite comfortable and a good strap around your waist. Because if your pack isn't comfortable like that, if you're trekking for your six or 7 days, your shoulders are going to get really sore because you don't have the right system to take all the weight on the hips and be nice and comfortable. So I would possibly invest in a nice day pack. So that's going to take everything that you need every day. And a lot of the times you're going to be needing about 3 litres of water. So good hydration pack is important. And if you don't have a nice 3 litres of water is 3 kilos in weight. And then you've got your other bits. So you need to have something nice and comfortable. So I would be thinking about a nice rucksack. So that's all the stuff that you're going to bring with you during the day. China is a little bit more straightforward in that the bag that you need to be bringing, doesn't matter, it's going to be staying in the bus. For this is your kit bag. And all you need is your waterproofs and a warm mid-layer, because we're not going to be staying out at night time or anything like that. In Peru, because of that nice first night that we're sleeping way up in the mountains, that's when it can get quite cold. We were up there was snow up there. Other groups, even that group there where it was nice and sunny during the day, because you're at altitude, 4,000 meters plus, it gets cold. So you're really, at the moment, Earth's Edge are recommending a proper down jacket for that night. Okay? So you do need to be looking at something like this. And again, with the sleeping bag has 2 ratings on it. It has a comfort rating and an extreme rating. The extreme rating, if it says -7 extreme, that means at -7 you're going to be in an extremely bad mood when you wake up the next morning. You need to look at the comfort. If it says comfort -7, then you're going to have a nice comfy sleep at that. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about your sleeping bags. Have a look at them. There's 2 there. The one is -7. And then one is about -17, I think it is. So you can see that the size is quite different in the 2 of them. But to be honest, the last time I was up there, my bag was, I think it was -7, and I was cool, shall we say, that first night. But it was one night, and I put on extra clothes, I put on my down jacket, and I was okay. So, but the thing about it is, if you want to come and do more trips, it might be nice to invest in something a little bit better. Hydration, and then we have our dry packs there. So from that point of view, South America, you have to think a little bit more about the gear that you're going to be bringing, because you are camping for those 3 or 4 nights along the way. And the others will be in their nice little guest houses and their white crispy sheets. So does anyone have any questions? Yes.
You mentioned the bag.
Yeah.
Was that bag for Peru or for China?
Both. So you need a good bag for both of them. Most of the walks in China are about 5 hours plus. So you need to be taking enough water with you, snacks. And again, that's 6 days back to back with a lot of up and downhill. So your pack needs to be quite comfortable. Yeah.
Just thinking of my knees. The other way in Ireland, you're popping along the heather and everything's very easy by comparison. If you're going in China along that kind of surface, is it hard underfoot? I know you said you're doing a lot of up and down.
Yeah, you definitely feel it. I'd be lying if I said you didn't.
Yeah.
Now, because a lot of the days the wall isn't in pristine condition, you're not actually walking on concrete or the tiles the whole time. So think of it as half on the tiles and half not. The rest of the time it's kind of rubbly and mucky. But there is, definitely there is a lot of steps. By the end of the 6 days, my knees were feeling a little bit tender. But we have the walking poles, and you just take your time. So it's fine, yeah. Definitely taking your time. Mm.
For Machu Picchu, that bag needs to contain your 4-day trekking stuff?
No, you'll have
clothes, or you can...
That's your day pack. So that's what you need during the day as such.
During the day.
And then your little bag will be carried by the mules, and that'll have your sleeping bag, your change of clothes,
And
everything
what
else.
does little mean?
Little means it's about this size.
So
It's about
smaller than that.
it's about 10 kilos, but it's surprising you get it all in. You do get it.
I was just thinking maybe a pair of running shoes, which are not boots, which
Yeah.
are comfy for the feet to actually get out of the boots, because obviously for trekking
Yeah.
that's the best thing to have for support and everything. But then when you are up on your stop and you know that you won't go until next morning, then it's good to have an extra pair of
Absolutely,
or
yeah.
pairs.
Yeah, it will be recommended, and there's enough space for that.
So
Yeah. I got everything I needed into it. It wasn't a challenge at all. You just, because it's 4 days trekking as such, and everyone's trekking together, so you're only looking at a spare top, possibly 2. You just all smell together. It'll be fine. And things like, the nice merino wool actually doesn't smell that much. So it's, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I would be more concerned about shoes because I think that's important to give your feet.
Yeah, no, there's definitely, and there's enough space.
But
Yeah.
notes, you can roll them up.
Yeah. No, there's definitely, I didn't struggle at all. So that was good.
So theoretically, your big dewy jacket doesn't have to go in your day pack. It can go with because that takes up space.
It takes up space, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
What's the pace like? I know you're saying 6-8 hours trekking, but it's not a very fast pace, is it?
It's a race. Yeah.
You're not close to that.
No, it's all because it's multi-day and because our altitude, it's slow and steady the whole way. It's that whole idea of you walk nice and comfortably for an hour or so, and then you have a little break and nice and comfortably for an hour. Because the other thing about altitude is we don't want to be losing too much water, because it's all about rehydration. So if we're pushing it, we're sweating and uncomfortable. So it's all very chilled. Yeah. And there's a lot to see, and you want to be taking pictures and having a good look around and chatting. So yeah, it's not boringly slow, but it's nice. It's a nice pace. Yeah, for sure.
In Peru, do you get many people suffering altitude sickness, or does that day and a half counteract that?
It does help it. Some people have struggled, for sure, but that's why we try to take it as slowly as possible. Yeah. It's it goes up a valley and we just take our time. But yeah, the last time I was there, I think some people felt more nauseous than they have done on some of the high altitude trips, the mountains, just because we're getting there quite quickly. But yeah, we've reduced it a lot by having that acclimatization day. Just take our time. Eat well, rehydrate well, rest well. Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
How much would the insurance cost now? Is it vary with your age, or is it?
Do you know, I have no idea. How much does the insurance cost?
So we recommend a company called Campbell Irvine, and they're an English company. They're a really good policy, and it'll cost you about £78. The only thing is they don't insure anyone over the age of 70. So anyone over the age of 70 would have to go for an Irish company called Be Sure. Yeah.
And how much is that?
They're roughly in around €50 or €60. Yeah.
£78 for the whole trip,
For a single trip, yeah.
for a trip.
Yeah. And then if you wanted an annual policy, if you're going to be travelling a good bit more, it's about £125.
Sounds actually alright
Yeah.
for a trip.
Yeah, no, it's a really good policy, really robust policy, and we'd highly recommend you get a Campbell Irvine insurance for one of our trips.
Cool.
Altitude in China? Sorry?
No.
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 That's what I thought. But
Yeah. No, I'm afraid not. Yeah. Sorry, was someone saying?
What's the temperatures like in China at the time?
I've been there twice. Once it got to about 22 degrees in the afternoon. The other time it never went over about 15 degrees. So it just depends what weather patterns coming through. When the sun comes out, it can be quite warm. You're definitely in your t-shirts. But I had a good fleece on me last time. It was a bit misty, very atmospheric. It was fantastic, but it was a little bit chilly. I had a woolly hat on some days, so it's can vary from one day to the next. Yeah.
And the later Machu Picchu trip,
The temperatures, again, because a lot of it you're way up in the mountains, when the sun shines, it's hot. And when it doesn't, when it goes down, the ambient temperature is quite cold. But when we were down camping low, I had my sleeping bag zipped open, and during the day I had t-shirts on, and up in Machu Picchu itself it was quite hot. Yeah. So again, it's the whole thing varies from -5 up to about 30 degrees depending. Yeah.
So that's the lowest temperature, -5 in nighttime?
Yeah, it can. That night, though, that first camp, it can get quite cold. It was definitely snowing and frosty. Yeah.
I guess we would feel that it's the winter.
Yeah, it's great. It's exciting.
Winter this year in Ireland.
Yeah, it's great. And you're looking out at snowy peaks. It's fantastic. Yeah, it's really good. Very good.
And what about vaccinations and things like that? Do you need to get?
Yeah, so you'd need to talk to your GP or go to the medical bureau, tropical medical bureau, or the one that you recommend.
We recommend the travel health clinic.
Travel health clinic, and talk to them and see. But yeah, there's definitely vaccinations to be had if you don't have them already.
Can it be taken in the tablets?
Which
Or
can
must
be,
the injection, the vaccination?
as far as I know, they're injections, but you'd have to check with your doctor. I've never been offered a tablet.
Well, I went one day. I had vaccination, but we didn't realize it was too late for vaccination, so we got tablets and it was fine.
Okay, yeah, but definitely, yeah, go see your GP. Yeah, get the expert advice.
Is your sleeping bag going in your little bag?
Yeah, you're worried about the little bag, aren't you?
It is. Yeah. Well, it's the little which worries. It's like little. What does little mean?
I know for sure no one on our trip struggled with getting everything that they needed in. Yeah.
You've been on.
Yep.
Yeah. It was absolutely fine. Yeah. Promise. Any other questions?
You don't do a spring trip to China? No?
No.
No.
I'm going to be in China anyway.
Are
I was
you?
wondering if I could connect
Oh,
up with
that's a
you
shame.
afterwards,
Yeah,
but it
no,
doesn't work.
sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm there
Yeah.
in May. So,
That's brilliant, guys. The shop will be open for a little while now, and there's 15% discount this evening if you need to buy anything. The guys are there full of their expert advice, and then when you sign up to a trip, you also get 15% discount in the Great Outdoors, which is quite handy if you want to stock up on the gear. But the great thing is, it does seem like there's quite a lot to buy, but as we said earlier, if you're planning on doing a trip next year or the year after, it's all usable. It's not going to get worn out in one trip, so you can use it.
I have to say the list I got from, I think maybe from you, the list I got is extensive.
It is quite extensive, yeah.
Absolutely massive.
Yeah,
Sorry now. But
Go
a lot
for
of
it.
the things that you would use in the Irish Hills will do use for that.
yeah. A lot of it you can move across.
Move across.
Yeah, and you can borrow.
Yeah.
I want my own.
Oh, do you? Yeah, for your next trip, is it?
Oh, definitely.
Brilliant, guys. Thanks very much.
who's going to see